Coronavirus, an update on 3/31/2020. The numbers have changed significantly since my last video, which is why I thought I would create another one. In addition, we've learned a lot of new information. And the other thing is, with social media, the internet, and the news, we constantly hear about coronavirus, but they've also developed these online trackers where we can see all the cases by country and even by state within the United States. And previously this may have only been available to epidemiologists, but now anyone in the public can actually follow the cases. So it's pretty astonishing that just 5 weeks ago we had relatively few cases compared to now. Coronavirus an update. It's been a little over a month since my last video and things have changed drastically. The only news we keep hearing about is coronavirus. The number of cases from last time on February 24th when I posted, there were about 20,000 cases in China and just a few in other countries in the world. Currently there are 850,000 cases worldwide and has been declared a pandemic. In the US, the number of cases went from 11 in the last video to now 186,000, with the highest being in New York City. And China has capped off at 81,000, and pretty much they've only added a few cases on any given day, so they've pretty much holding steady. Italy, on the other hand, has been hit pretty hard, and the number of cases keep going up. And it now has the second highest number of cases in the world at 105,000, and they've had a pretty high mortality rate with 12,000 deaths. So here's a timeline with a few highlights, but the link below on NBC News actually has a detailed timeline from January all the way through the end of March. But in a short period of time, a lot has changed since China first notified the World Health Organization on 12/31 of unknown cases of pneumonia. And by January 7th, they discovered it was a novel coronavirus. And then it had spread to some other countries, with the first case in the US being in Seattle. Then they declared a public health emergency once they had about 9,000 cases in China. And at that point, travel from China was banned by the US, and then it was declared a pandemic on March 11th. So you can kind of read through this on your own, and again, that's a really good link to a more detailed timeline of everything that's happened. So what have we learned since February? Well, it's been quite a lot. The disease is actually called COVID-19, and the virus itself is called SARS-CoV-2. And it is thought to be originated from bats, and like SARS and MERS, there was probably another animal intermediary before jumping to humans. And all three viruses are similar in their RNA. The incubation period is about 4 to 5 days, but can be as long as 14 days. Now the R0 is how infectious it is and how many other people that a person is likely to give it to. And for SARS-CoV-2, it's about 2 to 3 other people. Now the symptoms may appear anywhere from 4 to 14 days, although on average, most people start showing symptoms around day 4 or 5. The most common symptoms are fever, cough, and shortness of breath, and myalgias. Some people have reported anosmia, which is inability to smell, and some people have had some GI complaints such as nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, although less common. How it gains entry into the cell is it binds to the ACE2 receptor, which is predominantly found in the lungs, heart, and the kidney. Course of infection. 80% of cases have a mild course of disease and may have minimal symptoms such as fever, cough, myalgias, or mild GI symptoms. And some people are actually asymptomatic. Severe disease can occur in up to 15% of patients, and they may develop shortness of breath and pneumonia. Up to 5% may become critical, requiring ICU care and intubation for acute respiratory distress syndrome. Much of this data was from analysis of patients in Wuhan, although there is also anecdotal information from other countries such as Italy, France, South Korea, and the US. So it's still recommended that if you have any symptoms to self-quarantine for 14 days and call the PCP if you have any questions or concerns. And also, in order to get testing, you have to actually get approval from the PCP. Now, because not enough test kits are available, not everyone with symptoms are being tested. So the total number of cases actually may be underrepresented because there may be many people out there who, one, didn't get a test, or two, were asymptomatic, so were never tested. And again, this affects the elderly patients more so than the younger age group. They are at higher risk for severe or critical, requiring critical care, and higher incidence of death. However, based on the cases in the US, there are many younger adults who also have been hospitalized or have been placed in the ICU in their 30s and 40s. So again, practice social distancing, frequent hand washing, and quarantine if there's any concern. So how is this transmitted? Well, since it's jumped to humans, it is transmitted from person to person. So being around a sick contact who is shedding respiratory droplets, which you can breathe in, can cause illness. The other thing is people that are sick who contaminate surfaces by touching it or by coughing in the area. And then if you touch that surface and then touch your eyes, nose, or mouth, that is a way for the virus to get into your body. So what's recommended is hand washing for 20 seconds, keeping 6 feet away from other people, and what the term now is social distancing, and staying home as much as possible. So some surfaces have been tested to see how long this virus can last in the environment. For copper, it can last as long as 4 hours. On cardboard, the virus may last for 24 hours, and plastic and stainless steel for up to 3 days. So if you touch a contaminated surface and then you touch your eyes, mouth, or nose, then you could potentially contract COVID-19. The other thing is, right now, the respiratory droplets, because of their size, they tend to fall to the ground, so it's not thought to be in the air, although some studies have shown that it could last in the air for up to 2 hours when it's aerosolized. So there's a little controversy about that, but certainly that's why they ask you to maintain about 6 feet of distance, because a virus wouldn't travel that far in the air, even if you were in a room with a sick person. But again, everybody, they're encouraging everybody to self-quarantine if you show any of these symptoms, even from your family members, to maintain a distance. So in order to limit spread of the disease, here's an excellent graphic on flattening the curve. And what that means is if people continue to do their same daily activities as before, travel, attend large gatherings, and so on, then you'd have a huge surge in the number of cases. And the concern is that because a number of people become severely ill or critically ill and have to be hospitalized or intubated, there would not be enough resources to take care of so many people. So with the limit on large gatherings, the frequent hand washing, working remotely from home or staying home if possible, and minimizing travel, these are all ways to prevent spread of the virus, or at least decrease the spread of the virus. So as you can see on the other curve, it's a lot lower, so the number of cases is less, and it's spread over a larger period of time. So this way, if people do have to become hospitalized or go to the ICU, it wouldn't overwhelm the system. So for the first time in recent history, this has come as a big shock to the system. So all non-essential businesses have been closed. All large gatherings, such as any kind of sports activities, concerts, meetings, conferences, have all been canceled. And even restaurants are carry-out only. There's no dine-in, including bars. And as many people as possible are encouraged to work from home. Certain, of course, essential workers, such as healthcare workers, people who work in the grocery store or related to stocking the groceries, and pharmacies are going to remain open as usual. Airlines have drastically cut down the number of flights up to 80%, and this is all to flatten the curve. So this has been a shock on the system and probably in general everyone. And at this time, although the main thing is to get through this, a lot of people now are unemployed. The stock market has drastically reduced, probably lost about 30% or more of its value. So these are all some of the repercussions of what's happened. So how is it being tested for? The people that are tested, there's a nasopharyngeal swab with PCR, and this is what's currently being used. There is still a shortage of test kits, so not everybody who thinks they might have the disease is being tested, and some people, even if they suspect it, may just have to stay home and self-quarantine for 14 days. Now, Abbott has just come out with a new point-of-care test with the results in 5 to 10 minutes. And there are others under development which will be testing for the antigen antibody. Now, the antibody, of course, testing would mean that the person has already had the disease and they're either producing antibodies or they've cleared the disease and they still have antibodies circulating. And there are still investigations for vaccines, but this could take at least another year to 18 months. People that are hospitalized, treatment is supportive with supplemental oxygen. In New York, they are starting some clinical trials with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. This has been, there are a few small studies or case reports that this may be effective in shortening the disease or decreasing the viral load to 0. So this is all being tested. So some things that we still don't know is how long we're going to have to kind of continue the social distancing, and when are we going to see that actual drop or flattening of the curve like has happened in China. And we're still currently working on what the effective treatments might be. We don't know if this is going to be seasonal, if the higher temperatures will kill the virus. Will it recur next year in the winter? And of course, a great place to get all the current information is cdc.gov, and as well as the World Health Organization. And all my numbers came from worldmeters.com, and I believe Johns Hopkins also has a tracker for the cases. And again, a lot of this initial data came from analysis of the patients in Wuhan, China. Well, now that so many people are at home until, in order to slow the spread of disease, what now? Well, I think one thing is you need to keep up your own immune system. So eat a healthy diet, get adequate sleep, and of course exercise as much as you can. If you are going into the public spaces such as parks, sometimes they get crowded, so please make sure you maintain your distance from other people, or that defeats the purpose of the social distancing. And a lot of people may work on projects, they may catch up on movies or serials that they enjoy, and now that many children are home learning online, you can spend a little extra time with your family. And the other thing to think about is the fact that so many people are home. How is this going to impact the environment? And we've certainly decreased the amount of energy that's being used. Can we continue to afford that type of lifestyle that we had pre-coronavirus with the traffic jams and the throwaway goods and so much fuel and energy that we have to use? And do we need to think about a new kind of economy? So just some things to think about, how things were pre-corona and how things might end up after this is all over. Okay, well, that was the end of my video. It's a little longer than I thought, but there was a lot of new information, and hopefully things will improve after the next month. I know things will be tough again for the next few weeks going forward. My next topic will be on nutrition, and then I'll hopefully go on and finish the organ systems of the body, and then other medically relevant topics. If there's anything you want to see, please leave it in the comment, and like, subscribe, and share.